starting off the 5th generation of consoles, bringing 3D gaming to the forefront. This console had some great 3D arcade racers, fighting games in both 2D and 3D, pots of great PC first-person shooters, action adventures, and even an early look at a veteran which is still with us in the survival horror genre. The Sega Saturn sold over 9 million units worldwide. While considered a failure by Sega, there is enough great games on the system as well as an exhausted list of hidden gems. So let's take a closer look at the Sega Saturn. So, the Sega Saturn is powered by two Hitachi SH2 CPUs clocked at 28.6 MHz and two graphics processors, one of them themselves being made by Sega, which is clocked at 14.31 MHz, and another by Yamaha, the VDP2, clocked at 57.27 MHz. This was a complicated system which required full commitment to the hardware from developers to get the best out of it. While the Sega Saturn's main competitor, the Sony PlayStation, used triangle polygons, the Saturn used square polygons, which means both games that were both on the Saturn and PlayStation have very different looks. The sound on the system is controlled by a Yamaha YMF292, which provides clean stereo sound. If we take a look at the back side of the system, we have a power output and an AV output. The AV output is capable of sending both composite, S-video and RGB through SCART as well as RF through an external RF modulator. There is also a slot in the back of the system for an add-in video card which allows playback for VCDs as well as enhanced FMVs in certain games, as well as the battery backup for saved games. Now, if we take a look at the top of the system, it does have a cartridge slot which was primarily used for save game backup, allowing more saves than the standard battery. Also, you could get a modem which would go in the top of this to allow the system to go online. What I recommend doing with this is using the Action Replay Pro along with memory expansion capability in it to allow imports on the system. Now, let's take a look at the Saturn controller. So the Saturn does have a new redesigned controller so it's different than the Mega Drive with a new port on it as well. Now supporting 6 face buttons as well as a D-pad, a start button and 2 shoulder buttons. There are 2 designs of the Saturn controller. The first one you see here, and as well as a later one as well, which redesigned the controller, making it much more comfortable and having a much better D-pad than the original, as well as a much better form factor. I would say avoid the first gen controller at all costs, because that controller is the absolute worst. As for other controllers, they did release the Saturn 3D controller, which had a analog stick, and that was primarily used for the game Nights into Dreams. I don't have one to show you, but I'll put a picture up on it so you can see what it looks like. As well as you can get light guns for the system as well. The gun that you're looking at is the Eraser light gun for both PlayStation and Sega Saturn as well. So a lot of the light guns that you can get from that generation can be used on both. And also you could get a steering wheel which allows you to play more racing games as well, like the official Sega one there, having allowing you to change gears using the paddles on the back. Games on the system came in many forms. Primarily, they came in long boxes with a cardboard overlay, which these are some of the worst cases due to them never closing properly due to the clasps not connecting or wearing out. Other games did come in hard plastic cases, which are much more durable than the previous ones. Alternatively, games published by Electronic Arts tend to come in fatter plastic cases as well, which again have that benefit of being much more durable. While certain games did come in plastic long jewel cases, which are a pain due to the hinges constantly snapping and they're very hard to look after if you constantly open and close them. In Japan, games came in standard jewel cases, and in North America and Canada, games came in the long jewel cases. So, there's a bit there about the Sega Saturn. Just a few things to point out though before I move on to look at 3 of the games on the system that I suggest picking up. So some games as I mentioned, do require a 1MB or 4MB expansion RAM cartridge. The Action Replay cartridge, which I used to play in ports, does work on the majority of games, but if it requires a RAM cartridge, it can be a little bit iffy. For example, SNK games on there. So, for example, SNK's King of Fighters 1995 won't run without the official RAM cartridge, which is included with the game. Unfortunately, you can't use this obviously on a PAL system. It has to be a Japanese system or a modified system that allows you to play in ports in that respect. King of Fighters 96 though is an interesting case because that does allow you, actually, you can play it using the 4MB RAM cartridge on a PAL system. But if you are... occasionally you do get a lot of graphical issues a lot with the playable characters, like your character sprites. Occasionally they will become like glitchy messes. While the game is fully playable, you just occasionally do get them, and that is because of the 4MB RAM cartridge on that. But also I've heard it could also be to do with the fact that, again, running it on a PAL system, which is 50Hz, would be much better on an NTSC system, which runs at 60Hz. Again, trying to find out why is quite tricky with that. So bear that in mind if you are interested in the Sega Saturn and you are getting the Action Replay cartridge. What I will be doing though in the future, I will be getting a Japanese Sega Saturn, where I will be taking out the power supply unit out of that and putting a PAL power supply unit in, so that way I can just plug it straight in and it'll work. They're really the main things to bear in mind as well, really, with that. So let's have a look at 3 games that I recommend on the system. Again, there are plenty more games on the system, but here are just 3 that I recommend. So, sit back and enjoy. So, let's start with Crusader No Remorse. The game is a part of a PC game, originally released in 1995, but came out on the Sega Saturn and PlayStation in 1997. The game is an isometric action adventure in which you play as a silencer. The game revolves around you after your team is betrayed by the company that you work for. You manage to escape and join the Resistance. You undergo missions for the Resistance to gain their trust and to take down the WEC. Crusader is divided though into missions, each with their very own locations and objectives. Settings vary from factories to military bases to officers to space stations and contain a variety of soldiers and servo mechs, traps, puzzles and non-combatants. All locations have alarm systems which are triggered by walking in view of security cameras or destroying a secured door, and can be deactivated using the alarm box. So long as the alarm is active, either new enemy soldiers will teleport into the area or either servo mechs will be released, depending on where the player is. In addition, the player cannot use keycard slots or door switches while the alarm is active, so providing you to constantly turn the alarm off if it does go off there. The silencer can carry up to 5 firearms at once, and the game itself actually featured an unprecedented level of setting interaction. So you're able, like, you know, to use keypads, use computers. The entire background itself really is what I would say destructible as well. And you can, you know, you earn throughout level up, you can find weapons, ammunition, healing facilities. You also get credits which can be used to upgrade your weapons, and also you can get new weapons throughout each level as well. Graphics in the game do take advantage of pre-rendered sprites for both enemies and backgrounds, so it fits the game, and it does look like, you know, an early or mid 90s PC game, because it does use an Ultimate engine in there as well, and also it does make use of badly acted FMVs. Sound in the game, well, the soundtrack is primarily techno music, which does fit the dystopian future and setting of the game, and also enemies do cry out when you do shoot them, and also the sounds it is pretty satisfying just to blow up an entire room. Controls in the game, what I would say though, are the major weak point. Due to the game using isometric design, it can be difficult sometimes to align yourself to go through doors and everything of that sort as well, but aiming is pretty simple because you can literally just spray across the room and that will take out the majority of enemies. So with 15 missions in the game should last you a good long while, and I do believe that this game is worth picking up. So, how can I talk about the Saturn without talking about the first game I played on the system? I welcome you to the world of survival horror. So let's bring on Resident Evil. Released 1 year after the first release of the game on the PS1 in 1996, Sega Saturn gamers got to play this classic of a game. So, if you don't know what Resident Evil is at this point, you play as two members of STAR's Alpha Team who have gone searching for Bravo Team, who are investigating a spate of bizarre mergers in Raccoon City which led their investigations into the Arklay Mountains, and they have gone missing. Your adventure begins as you are chased off by dogs and end up taking shelter in an old mansion. This is an early survival horror game in the genre. While definitely not the first, that would have to go to Alone in the Dark on the PC at the time, or Sweet Home on the NES. You play as Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield, and your mission is to escape the mansion while finding your missing teammates. As mentioned, you play as Jill or Chris. Whoever you choose will affect what puzzles you find in the game, and what NPC characters you meet as well, and occasionally what weapons you find as well. So for example, Jill's scenario tends to be the easiest because she gets given a lockpick right at the beginning of the game, as well as she's got a larger inventory so she can carry more items around to solve puzzles with, while Chris has less inventory and he has to rely on an NPC character called Rebecca Chambers to solve those puzzles as well. The game does take advantage of inventory management as well. So as I said, any items that you don't need to use at the moment, you can store in what's known as a magic box. So wherever you are in the mansion or outside the mansion later on in the game, you'll be able to access items that you might have put in there later, such as healing items, extra ammo, certain weapons as well. And these are normally found in a safe room where you can save as long as you've got ink ribbons. Controls in the game are one of the flaws. Commonly called tank controls, meaning up moves you forward no matter what, and down moves you back, while you rotate using the left and right buttons on the D-pad. Also, which is unique in this game, is the fact that you have to hold down a button to ready your gun before you can press the A button to fire it, and also you can hold down the B button to run around while holding up and down. As I mentioned, though, it does take advantage of still and camera angles, so set camera angles, so they might be up in one corner, so while the controls can seem a bit awkward at first, it is handy to know that up will always mean you're going forward. So when the camera angle changes to, you know, a forward-facing view, you're able to run straight towards that as well. So while the controls are archaic, they do work quite well for the game. The game utilises pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D models for your character and your enemies, as well as some items that can be interacted with. As mentioned earlier on in the video, the game does look slightly different than the PS1 or PC ports due to the PlayStation using triangle polygons, while the Sega Saturn used rectangle based polygons. The game also makes use of some of the best, worst acted full motion videos for the intro and the outro movies. Talking about bad acting, the game is legendary for having some of the most cringiest voice acting ever, but this does overall add to the campiness of the game, and it brings on its own charm as well. I mean, some of the voice lines in it are just the worst, but you can't help but love them. While background music is normally non-intrusive, it's normally subtle tones, which gives a nice, bleak, foreboding feeling to it, and also gives the game overall an eerie edge. The game itself, though, is quite sought after for the system. Actually, it's one of the must-owns on the system, and normally in the UK it goes for about £15 to £25. Me saying it's worth getting is a non-statement, because I'm a Resident Evil fan, but I had to put this in there. If you are a fan of Resident Evil and you've never played the Saturn version, I recommend picking the game up. Now let's take a look at a decent fighting game on the system which shows off the 2D powerhouse the system truly is. Released in arcades in 1995 and the following year on the Sega Saturn. I'm talking about X-Men, Children of the Atom. This game is built on the same engine as Street Fighter Alpha, so controls are perfect, especially when using the Mark II Sega Saturn controller, with full 8-way directional movement and 3 punch buttons located on X, Y and Z, and 3 kick buttons located, well, Mark II A, B and C. Right bumper button allows you to run across the screen, and the left bumper button allows you to do a super jump. If you've played any Street Fighter games, then this is quite an easy game to pick up and play, because the control is very similar, with your half crescent punch move normally being a special attack. In the game you can select from 10 different characters, which are split up into 6 heroes and 4 villains. If you play through the arcade mode, you will go up against 2 extra villains, which are Juggernaut and Magneto. The game uses the comic book roots of the characters to allow fast-paced action, which translates into frantic, fluid gameplay, and with being able to use a super jump, making you seem more like a superhero, or even like float around the stage. Some stages in the game can also be destroyed, allowing you to get access to other areas of the stage. Graphically, the game is stunning, with stripe-based artwork for the background and character models, and as I said, alongside smooth animation, the game is a visual treat. Music in the game really isn't anything special, but using jazzy stings along with distorted synths and good liberal use of electric guitars, it does fit the and does complement the frantic action on screen. In conclusion, there are plenty of fighting games on the system. This is just one of them. Capcom really showed the love for the system by putting a lot of their CPS2 arcade games, such as Street Fighter Alpha 1 and 2, Darkstalkers, as well as Street Fighter vs X-Men. The game can normally be found quite easy, but being a fighting game, being a Capcom fighting game, does normally go for between £30 to £50. So, that there are 3 games on the Sega Saturn: Crusader No Remorse, Resident Evil and X-Men Children of Atom. As I say, the game is, as I mentioned, the systems themselves is a 2D powerhouse. Games for it are quite rare though, and quite uncommon, primarily because it was a commercial flop. This is why, again, I recommend getting something like the Action Replay Capture, because this does allow you to get some of the imported games alongside that. Other games though, on the system, stuff like Panzer Dragoon Saga, stuff like that, are very difficult to get hold of and are very expensive. Guardian Heroes is probably one of the best games on it, but you can play that actually on the Xbox Live Arcade, I believe, on the Xbox 360 as well. But yeah, Sega Saturn, while commercially a flop, it is one of the most, I believe, underrated systems of all time. Nobody really shows it any attention, or when they do, it's because it's this weird, odd Sega system sort of thing as well. But again, I do recommend getting one, and systems you can normally get quite easy with that. Personally, no matter which version you go for, just make sure you get a decent controller like the Mark II Saturn controller rather than the Mark I. So, I hope you've all had a great Christmas, and I hope you all have a great New Year, and I will see you again next year. But remember, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to leave in the comment section below, or if you have any recommendations on Saturn games, put them in the comment section below. If you like this video, like it. If you dislike it, dislike it. Feel free to share the video on social media or whatever if you like it. And if you want to see more of these videos, feel free to subscribe. But then again, as I say at the end of every video, keep on gaming.